Howdy everyone, welcome to the third part of our five-part energy video series. Today we're going to be discussing the energy types of hydroelectricity and biofuel. So the giveaway keyword for today is biofuel. The Office of Sustainability runs giveaways like this all semester long, and the more keywords you enter, the more likely you are to win. Again, the keyword is biofuel for this presentation.
So, how does the hydroelectric energy process work? Essentially, you start off with gravitational potential energy of the water, which then is turned into kinetic energy, and then electrical energy is generated. So there are a few ways to optimize this process. We can increase the initial height of the water, we can increase the flow of the water, and increase the number of turbines. So the history of hydroelectric power. Hydroelectric energy was used as long as 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece, but was used in the form of water wheels instead of the complex process we have today. So it continued to be used in the form of water wheels in colonial US in the 1800s. Hydroelectricity today. Today, hydroelectric power makes up approximately 60% of all renewable energy sources and 16% of all energy sources, including non-renewable ones. And so you can see that pretty much depicted on the graph right there. And so the use of hydroelectric energy has avoided up to 100 billion tons of CO2 emissions in the last 50 years. Future of hydroelectric. So hydroelectric is pretty much has the most promise in terms of the sustainable energy sources we talked about, has incredibly low cost and a large employment opportunity, currently employs nearly 2 million people globally. But unfortunately, it isn't growing as much as the other sources, which is due to a number of factors, including cost and the time it takes to build these dams.
So moving on to biofuel, how does biofuel actually work? Biofuel is one of the lesser known energy sources. It's really only begun to be optimized recently. But as to how it actually works, biofuel is a very versatile fuel source. It can be produced in many ways, including directly burning it, decomposition through anaerobic digestion, conversion to liquid or gas through deconstruction or fermentation, which in and of itself has many different sub-processes, including gasification, pyrolysis, hydrothermal liquefaction, and hydrolysis, which all produce different byproducts. The one that we're going to be most interested in is going to be hydrolysis, pyrolysis, and hydrothermal liquefaction because they are most relevant in the biofuel in terms of fueling vehicles in terms of that industry. So the history of biofuel, the first biofuel-powered engine was produced in 1824, which, as you may note, is long before the first automobile was produced. In 1900, Rudolf Diesel presented an engine that ran on peanut oil at the Paris World Fair. And the first biofuel-powered vehicle, the Citroën Rosalie, was manufactured in 1933. And finally, in 1937, the first instance of commercial biofuel as an alternative to petroleum was created by the University of Brussels in Belgium. So what about biofuel today? Today, there are three primary types of biofuels in use, including ethanol, which makes up the vast majority of all biofuels produced, biodiesel, which is a small percentage, and renewable diesel, which is an even smaller percentage. So the vast majority is indeed ethanol. Biofuel has grown exponentially as an industry in the 21st century, but it still only makes up a very small percentage of total fuel used. What about the future of biofuel? It looks to be a very promising energy option going forward. It's projected to grow from meeting 4% of global transport energy demand today to meeting nearly 10% in 2030, which, while still a small number, certainly doubling it in the next 7 years would be very beneficial to the environment. The more biofuel we use, the less commercial fuel that we use, the more sustainable that we are. So what about where biofuel can actually grow? Well, where it can grow the most is instead of using conventional feedstocks like sugarcane, corn, and soy to produce biofuel, there's a very untapped field of resources for biofuel, which is using waste and residue in order to produce more biofuel. Today, these make up only 9% of all biofuels, but they're projected to grow to up to 40% by 2030 if we want to maximize biofuel production. You're all excited. And next time.
So next time we'll be discussing solar energy, more in-depth conversation about the history of solar, its advantages and disadvantages, its applicability, and relevant statistics.
And that's all.